Thank you for joining us today at Live from the Sawmill. Today's podcast is discussing the documentary and the same name CD release of Sing You a Brand New Song. The documentary was created to celebrate the life of Coleman Mellett, a talented jazz guitarist, and to share his previously unreleased but incredibly heartfelt music. Mellett, who was a member of Chuck Mangione's band, tragically passed away at the age of 34. It was 2009. He was on his way to a performance in Buffalo, New York, when his plane crashed. The documentary was created in his honor. The film dives into Mellett's lesser-known work as a singer-songwriter. This was something that surprised those who knew him primarily as a jazz guitarist. At the Sawmill, we're speaking with his special guest. Here with us today is jazz vocalist Jeanie Bryson, widow to Coleman and daughter of the late Dizzy Gillespie. She's here to tell us the story of both the making of the movie and the production of the CD. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Thank you.
Jeanie, welcome, and we are thrilled to have you here, and it was a real pleasure to be a part of the showing of the documentary last week. We just loved it. We thought it was incredible.
Thank you for having me. I love your pad down here, your little clubhouse. It's fabulous. I'm excited to talk about what you saw and what you heard.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Let's start with the music first.
Yeah.
How would you describe Coleman's music? His style?
Well, there's a lot going on with his style because he had so many interests and loves, really, of so many different styles. So, of course, he was a great jazz player. You hear that in his music, but
Certainly.
He also loved pop, but like old pop, 70s pop, the great singer-songwriters. So he had elements of, he could play a flamenco piece. He played the mandolin. He had folk, jazz, pop, Latin, played a beautiful bossa nova. So it was, I can't really pin down his style, just a very broad.
Good.
Yeah, that's great. Did you know that all those songs were on the computer, and that was he planning on making a CD or releasing his recordings?
Well, it was his dream. I mean, it wasn't like it was an active idea that he was going to do next week, but actually I found a piece of paper recently that was his handwritten list of, I think it said album project, and then it had most of the songs that we chose that we found on his computer. But it wasn't like we're doing it tomorrow. It was just he was writing these songs. He was making as a professional and good quality sounding demo as he could. And then, so that's kind of the process. You write the song and then you demo it. And then at that point, that's when you would actually start thinking about making the record. But it wasn't anything in the near future.
Right. And you and Barry Miles came up with this idea.
Well,
and also how did you knew Barry Miles?
Yes,
obviously beforehand.
I knew Barry since the late 80s. It's a funny story. My mom was in a recording studio recording a demo for one of her songs, and in the next studio she heard this incredible music, and she, being the musical nerd that she was, she ran to the next studio and she wanted to know who is playing that, and it was Barry recording one of his tunes.
He was a pianist, right?
Yes. So they met then, and long story short, he ended up producing my first demo. I did 3 tunes. Barry did, he played all the instruments, produced it, and that's actually what got me probably with my foot in the door with the first record company that I signed with. So it was his beautiful demos. Yeah. So then Coley, many years later, 30 years later, Coley and I met Barry in Cape May. We were performing down there. Barry lived in the area, and we met. Those guys hit it off. We went over the next day.
The Jazz Fest.
No, it was actually the Marion Inn. George Mesterhazy's wife owned that the Marion Inn.
Okay.
They had a gorgeous Steinway in there, and they would invite musicians down. It was a real hang. It was George is no longer here with us.
Mhm.
He's one of the most amazing pianists I've ever worked with. Anyway, but it was at that little club, so that's where they met. And then shortly after that, which was the summer of 2008, I strongly encouraged Coley to send one of his demos to Barry. And he protested and protested, and I said, please just send every morning. So he reluctantly emailed it to him, and Barry got back to him like minutes later and said, oh I would love to contribute to this.
That's great.
So that was,
That's
only a
awesome.
few months before Coley was gone.
Mm.
But they, formed that bond and discussed and talked a lot about it. And Barry, actually Coley got to end up to hear at least 2 or 3 of what Barry ended up putting as the piano part on his songs, and loved it. He'd run in and say, Barry just sent me the piano part for Ohio, and
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
So it was just this really beautiful thing that happened very fast and just for a short period of time. But that's one of the reasons I knew Barry would be able to do this, because he really
He's
knew
already engaged.
what
Yeah,
Coley wanted.
Great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, how did you choose the musicians?
Well,
Yeah.
Barry had a lot to do with that, because as Will Lee says in the film, when Barry Miles calls, you listen. So, Barry is, absolutely revered. So he got Will. I didn't know Will before then, but I was the one that thought of asking Steve Gadd, because I remember
The drummer.
talking to Steve, the greatest drummer in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah, he's been playing with a lot of people.
Yeah, Steve, well, let's just put it this way. Steve agreed to do the recording and was in between touring with Eric Clapton and James Taylor. And he had 3 days off in between his 2 tours.
Wow.
And he
Wow.
recorded the drum parts in those 3 days. That
Wow.
just shows you what kind of guy Steve Gadd is.
Yeah.
So he did his thing in Arizona. Chuck Mangione played in New York. My friend James and Maddie were playing in Berlin,
Wow.
and Larry Golding's in New York. So the musicians were coming from everywhere
Wow.
and laying down their parts.
Right.
So that's how that came about. So Barry had a lot to do with, and also Barry and I both agreed that I would try to contact James Taylor, and I did,
Nice.
and he agreed.
That's great. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite song?
Absolutely
I
not.
mean, it's tough. The CD is incredible.
Yeah, I think that a lightning bolt would come and hit me if I could choose one, but there's some that especially pull at my heartstrings. What You Are to Me,
Yeah.
about the garden, and if in the film, they were filming our garden, and you see how lush and green, and we built that together. He put the fence up, we laid the bricks, so there's a lot of sentimentality to attach to my outside of my
Right.
house,
Right.
because we did it together. But we were plant people, we enjoyed that. So What You Are to Me, wow, Honey Kiss, I really love.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
Got Me Too, I really love, and those are, they're all about our life together.
Right. I
Yeah.
think it was Barry Miles who, in the documentary, described Coley's music as the positivity and intimacy of
Yeah.
the lyrics.
No question.
You really felt in your heart.
Well, that's kind of what I think sets Coley's new music with an old feel apart, because so many his lyrics are so good, and they're so good that you feel, somebody said this the other day, I feel like I should have heard of him before, because it reminds you of the heyday of really great songwriting, lyric writing, of James Taylor, of Paul Simon,
Sure.
That
Mhm.
era. So that's why people think they've heard it before, because it's it's a throwback to this really great era of songwriting. And so if you look at the lyrics, that's why we got to have an album, so we can have 12 inches to look at instead of this, and read those lyrics. I mean, the lyrics are extraordinary.
Yeah, they are. You can play them on Spotify too.
Yes, yeah.
Which is nice.
Oh, you can? Oh, really?
Yeah, you can see the lyrics to the songs as they play.
Oh.
But I have to say that there are songs you listen to and you're like, okay, even from artists that you've known for a while, I have to get used to this. But when you listen to this CD, it's like you feel like it's already been part of your life. I don't know what you call that, but the way it sounds, it's not like, oh, I have to adjust or hear it. I don't know how radio stations used to play songs over and over again until it got stuck in your mind and embedded. This, you don't need that. And there's very few musicians who really can do that.
It's like deja vu for music.
Right.
It's like in a good way.
Right. It's like it
feels
feels good. It's the sound, the lyrics, it all just.
It's very comfortable. It feels like you've heard it before. It's so singable.
Right.
People really,
captivating.
we really want. People want to run the lyrics in your head. We all want to be able to do that, and hear it in your mind. And if the lyrics are good, and the melody makes sense, then it's like a no-brainer. It's in there.
It's like
it's
you've
in your
listened
head.
to it all along.
Exactly. And it's very hard to remember some of the music that's out there because it's like it makes no sense musically, or where am I? You're lost. But this is very grounding music.
Yeah, those are the songs that you grew up listening to.
Exactly.
And you were like, I thought the lyrics were
Exactly.
Yeah.
kick a donkey in the butt. And it's like, no, that's not the lyrics at all.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great.
So next we're going to go into talking about the documentary, and we're going to prepare a cocktail.
Yes.
A libation.
Libation.
A
So
Pim's Cup.
And
Pim's Cup,
and
that's
may
right.
I say, this is in honor of my dear friend Glynis, who's over across the pond. Yes.
Okay.
And
she
wanna-
turned you
Well,
on
we
to
asked
Tim's.
She absolutely, when you said, what might I like? I said, well, one of my favorite things is a Pim's Cup.
All right.
So this is for Glynis.
All right.
And I have to give a nod to my friend Wendy, who gave me the recipe.
Fabulous.
yes. Okay, we are back live from the Sawmill with our very special guest, Jeanie Bryson. And Jeanie, we are getting ready to make you your special cocktail with a Pim's Cup, as we call it. And we'll go through real quick as we put this together, all the ingredients.
Great.
Joyce, you could help with the ingredient installation here in our fancy pitcher.
Okay.
We'll start with a half cucumber.
Cucumbers in there. Little tiny
A
cucumbers.
lot of flavor from cucumbers if you add it to water too.
Yeah.
Our strawberries.
So we got a mix of berries.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, yes,
You
yes,
got
yes,
the blackberries. We're called for 8 strawberries, and all of this fruit is supposed to be thinly sliced, so you
wow.
get all the juices and
We'll do a
flavor.
little smash.
Your half an orange.
This is not, the pitcher is going to get very full
Yeah.
very fast.
As long as we have room for the booze.
Wow, this is, I think when Glennis and Carol introduced this to me, I think that they were just doing them individually. So this is great because I think you get,
Make a pitcher. And you can have
flavor?
more than one.
yes.
Some apple?
Yes. Half of a green apple.
Wow.
Don't mind my hands, I'm sorry.
And I already put in the ice down on the bottom. So that's a quart of ice. And then we're going to do a cup of the
Oh, what
Pim's.
about the lemons? We have a lemon, right? Some there.
And this Pim's #1. They actually made a few of them.
Yes, there's like a.
But this is the most popular one that's easily found in most of the liquor stores around here.
It might
So
be
the
like a
pins is in there?
blackberry or something. There's another flavor that's very, it's a berry. It's,
And then it calls for 24 ounces of a lemon lime soda, Sprite, 7-Up. So this is going to be nice to drink.
wow.
I see us drinking these all summer.
That's what I'm telling you. You'll be sold.
Sitting out on the deck.
Should I start stirring or?
We got one more.
This is really nice. I mean, it's just, and this is one of the ones you had asked if I knew of what he was doing, his
Yeah.
songs. And relating to that, I really didn't hear this one.
Oh, you did
At
it
this-
now?
I don't remember because I know what he was singing. He was telling me about it, but I never heard it to the extent where I really would have remembered. And then the words he wrote it while he was the guitarist for Radio City for the Rockettes for the
Oh, was
Christmas
he?
show.
Oh, okay.
He got that gig, the first change in guitar players in 30 years.
Wow.
And he got the gig, and he did that year. And this, if you read the words to this about the hustle and bustle of it, it's a very grueling gig because they do it 7 days a week. Sometimes you might do 4 shows in a day. It's difficult.
My
I mean,
friend's brother.
it's great money.
Chris's brother, Johnson Pollard,
Oh, that's
played,
right.
I know it was a horn. But
Yeah, I mean, and they never
for years.
never leave it. If you have that gig,
Yeah.
it's a 7-week gig, and then you're in,
yeah.
and you do it for 30 years. So anyway,
Wow.
he wrote that song about the hustle and bustle of getting to Radio
Radio
City. He
City.
said, I can do it in 11 minutes if I'm running with my guitar on my back.
Oh gosh.
So anyway, that's what that was about.
Yeah.
That song.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Let's give it a
cheers.
try.
Oh,
We don't get any fruit in our
It,
cup.
it didn't sit long. Well, you have to.
Cheers.
very nice. Oh, that's delicious.
Very refreshing.
As good as you remember?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
If you like it fizzier, you can add club soda. Like I have a soda making machine, so I can make it really fizzy. Yeah, a lot of
It's not too sweet.
no,
I thought it was gonna be really
Gonna
sweet.
be really sweet. It was
no, but a splash of club soda is also nice
Yeah.
if you want a little more fizz.
I wonder if you could try it with like cream soda.
Mmm,
That might be
It
good.
almost tastes like
Wow.
a cream soda.
it's delicious.
So, I think you're at the first question.
Yes. Yes. All right. Going into the documentary. So Jeannie, tell us what inspired you to make this documentary.
Well, it was something that was a completely organic thing to think about. I wasn't even thinking so much about making a film as documenting the process of this incredible thing that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, nowadays, it's so easy to document. I mean, one of the things I found interesting about my film is that, we had very little film footage, because, we met 30 years ago. I mean, nobody had anything, weren't walking around with cameras,
Right.
Right.
or film.
Yeah.
I think I had a Panasonic or a Sony or something, little tapes. But
Right.
anyway, very little of that. So for me, the documentary it certainly was a challenge to make something that seemed like it was moving and going somewhere when all you have is a bunch of still photos. So I think that was I think people would be surprised if you really thought, well, geez, yeah, there was very little, like, TikTok, people
Right,
doing
right.
things. So that was I think one of the really great outcomes of the film is that it moves. It's never slowing down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's short. It's good. It's short and sweet.
Yeah.
You know.
And it pieces everything together.
Yes,
with
and
the CD.
yes, I that's one of the reasons why. So you ask why I decided to make the film. So the film was it was being made at the time it was being done. And so how could you possibly recreate the emotion and the feeling of making this record if not at the moment you're making the record? So
Right.
like, what choice did I have? It's like,
Sure.
we gotta document it
Yeah.
and then figure out what we're doing, you know?
Mhm.
So it was very lucky that we were able to start when it was happening.
Yeah, it's
You
great.
can't go back to that moment. You know, the
No.
feeling like when we're in the studio and there's such joy and you see the love and the laughter even. And then, you know, when I'm crying, I'm listening to it. So that's something that was happening then at that moment.
Yeah.
So fortunately we had that. I think it made it very, very strong
Yeah.
feeling. You know, I have to say one thing. When I watch the film with an audience, I'm very surprised how quiet it is. And my first instinct is always, oh, it's so quiet because people don't like it. Are people
Mhm.
not laughing? Like if I say something funny that, you know, or somebody says something funny and I laugh and nobody else laughs, I'm like, well, I know that was funny, so why aren't they laughing? But it's I'm asking you as people that, you know, weren't my friends, you know, I didn't know you
Right.
well. It's you're an outside observer in a way, right? And the kind of the gravity of it, like, I think it just is it people are just watching like like this, or you know what I mean? It's so interesting to me. It's so, usually you hear in a theater, you hear rustling, you hear this and that, and I'm like, nothing.
You know, I think it's just just an amazing story that you're kind of feel like you're dipping into or being like a fly on the wall
You
in
were
somebody's
immersed,
life.
right?
So
You're
you're
immersed
completely
in it.
immersed. It was very touching, and I know we brought a couple friends with us too who were very moved by the movie. And I think it's just, you know, you're just watching it. You're immersed and you're observing and you're watching it. I don't think it's that you didn't think things were funny, or you're just kind of like
Yeah, it's just
absorbing. And
I know that was funny or something. You know, I know that this would make somebody smile, but yet it's just, I do notice that. But the feedback I get is just what you're saying.
Right.
Like, I just think it kind of takes over somehow. Like it's a little spell.
yeah,
You know, I don't want to sound too witchy or anything, but I feel as though when you start watching it, you go to a different place. You know, you're
Yeah.
like there. You're there. And again, like his
Yeah.
music, it's very intimate.
mm-hmm.
The movie is very intimate, and I think that actually is something that might make people be like, whoa, like, should I, almost like if you
Yeah.
walk
maybe
in on
it's out
somebody
of-
when they're changing or
Right.
something,
It's
you
out of
know?
respect for you.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
knowing that you're there.
Yeah, but
Then-
anyway, I mean, it's not bad. It's not a
Mhm.
bad thing. It's just that I noticed it again because I hadn't seen the film in 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
after COVID, there were no film festivals, but I did go to 4 film festivals, big ones, and they were fabulous.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about those film festivals.
Oh well, I mean, you know, first of all, you get to see all the films people have, and you know, I love movies and I love documentaries, and I just met the coolest people and the coolest films. Anyway, it was just it made me feel it was such a validation. You know, you have to apply to be in these festivals.
Right.
They accept you. You know, you were invited to be there, and we won best documentary in New Jersey festival and audience favorites in both Virginia and Niagara Falls. And Virginia was over 200 films.
Wow.
So, you know, that's a lot of films
Yeah.
we were up against, and everybody's work is a valid work, because otherwise it wouldn't be there, you know.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it was a really affirming, wonderful experience. I was very disappointed when COVID happened and, you know, we had to stop doing that. But then we were kind of able to shift back to the record, because the
Yeah.
big question after the film is, where is the music?
Right.
And I'd
right.
have to say, it's not out yet. So it was crazy. It was just a crazy, it just took, first we're going to start with the music, then we're going to go to the film, then we're going to go back to the music, then we're going to go back to the film. It was just nuts, and it just took so many years. But now I think maybe it was the right time, because there are so many more opportunities for people to do what we're doing, which is doing it ourselves. We don't have a record company.
Yeah.
I kept thinking I'm old fashioned. I come from the 1990s when I had a record company, and they supported my tour, and they gave me money, and all that kind of stuff. And that's over, unless you're big,
Right.
So I had to completely reevaluate how to get this music out there. The only thing I really believed in was that people would love it. I knew it.
And they do.
And they do.
And they do.
Everyone I've sent it to has enjoyed it thoroughly. Really liked it.
Well, I have very good taste, and I'm very discerning. I'm my mother's daughter. She taught me to be very, very discerning, not critical, but I grew up with the best music around me, and I expect things to, very high mark. So when I like something, I really like it.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to hear music I like.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You know when it's good.
That's right. Duke Ellington, there is no, we don't put it's either good music or bad music. Duke Ellington,
Yeah.
So he's right.
We've got a few Duke Ellington over there.
Yeah.
We'll have to go through our
He knew.
jazz collection.
Yes.
Show
Oh,
you
what a
we have.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Just love this space. Very cozy.
And how did you decide upon Michael McDonald to be the narrator of the film?
Well, my husband and I adored Michael McDonald. We would sing like Michael McDonald to each other back and forth. We met Michael McDonald on backstage when Chuck and Michael McDonald shared a bass player from LA. His name's Chaz Fricktel, fantastic bass player. So he'd go on the road with Michael. For 20 years, he was with Michael's bass player. He also sings beautifully and writes great songs. But when he wasn't working with Michael, he would work with Chuck. And so Coley got to know him. And, somebody asked, did anyone else hear his music? One of the few people that Coley probably shared early demos of his music was with Chaz, because he really respected him as a songwriter, as a lyricist, and I'm sure Chaz has some very early sketches of his songs, but not really hardly anybody else,
Yeah.
Anyway, so Chaz invited us backstage when Michael was playing at the South. It used to be in New Jersey, South Jersey, Garden State Arts Center. So Chaz invited us backstage. Michael was playing, and we had the most wonderful time backstage, eating cheese and crackers and drinking wine with Michael McDonald. And he couldn't have been sweeter and kinder and more lovely. So we were both on cloud nine, and I knew that I would want somebody that was preferably a famous person, a famous musician that we love.
Sure.
Well, that list is probably pretty short, that I would be able to talk to, and I knew Chaz and Michael still work together, so I talked to Chaz. I said, do you think that Michael might be willing to narrate the film? And he said, well, I'll talk to him. And about a week later, I'm walking my dog Georgie down the street, and I get a phone call, and it's from Hawaii. And I said, I don't know anybody in Hawaii. Hello. Hi, this is Mike McDonald.
So
Mike. I'm like, hi. And he said, oh, first of all, let me say how I'm so sorry you lost Coley, and it was so lovely to meet you, blah, blah. He remembered everything. And then he said, I would be honored to do this. He said, I hope
great.
I
Very
can.
nice.
I hope I can do it. We did it in Nashville. I took a train, because I don't fly. I took a train to North Carolina, took a car, drove to his house,
Wow.
And my brother-in-law met me there, and we recorded his narration in his basement. And
At the
I've
studio?
got to tell you, yes, a full studio. When I was walking down your stairs, I said the last time I saw something this nice was in Michael McDonald's house.
All right.
Because he
Wow.
also, well, yeah, I mean, he has a fabulous, of course, he's got his posters from the Doobie Brothers and everything.
Yeah.
But it's that same feeling. You walk down and we recorded it there.
Oh,
So
that's great.
he did that again, like all the musicians, out of the goodness of their hearts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was there a favorite part in the movie itself?
Well,
You know, it comes to that part and you're like, oh, this is...
yes. So I love the part where Rosie talks about finding Coley on this cable TV show.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
inviting inviting Coley to the house, and
right.
Chuck just being like, you just met this guy you're inviting. They're very private people, and when
Right.
Chuck's talking about it, he's got that smile on his face. He's
Yeah.
saying it with great affection, but he's trying to say like, yeah, invite the next bum up to
Right.
our
From the
home that I
park.
don't know. So I think that's a really beautifully told story,
Yeah.
back and forth with them. And then at the end, when they show when his father says, "What are you going to do?" and Coley's like, "I'm going to buy all his records." And so Coley went out
Right.
and bought 25 records and learned every
Learned
song
his
on it.
songs.
And then
Wow.
that he really did do that. So I think that's a really wonderful climactic, part of the film. And then, so luckily, there's right after that when you see Coley and Chuck playing together, and Coley's got that like black jacket on, and he just looks like this is like many years in already. So like he's not that fresh faced kid. And then Chuck just says, he was so confident in his playing. That was from Seoul, Korea. And in my original cut, I didn't know I had that piece of video. But then I was just looking through Coley's, you can imagine, and I see Seoul, and I pull it out, and I'm like, oh my God, this, let me send it to the editor. And so that's where that film, like we don't have a lot of films, so I
Right.
see this film with Chuck and Coley playing like in front of a gigantic theater. Like it was like
Wow.
gold that somebody just sent me to that spot. I
But
found it.
Coley went to Chuck's house and auditioned for like 15 minutes
15 minutes.
and left.
And then Rosie just thought she screwed up, and she
Yeah.
went running in and said, "Oh God, I'm sorry for sending this kid that, I'm sorry." And he's like, "What are you sorry for? I hired him." And it was really like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And believe me, it was quite a gig to have for a
Yeah.
24-year-old.
Yeah. Wow. And how many years was he in Chuck Mangione?
10 years.
10 years. Wow. That's great. And then, what were some of the biggest challenges in bringing the CD and the film to life?
Like it was like 90-10%. Like the film was 90% of the work. Well, first of all, I am not the engineer. I did not spend the thousands and thousands of hours that Barry Miles and Ron DeCesare spent
Right.
doing it. Like that's a whole other story. That's a
Right.
whole other, and actually they just were interviewed in Mix magazine. They're
Oh,
going to
were
do a
they?
they're
Oh,
going to do
cool.
a story on
Oh,
our
nice.
project because it
Wow.
is like truly needs to be told as an engineering story.
Yeah.
So that's
In the works.
in the works. Oh yeah, that'll be
Any
out.
idea when that's
Oh
coming?
yeah, like in the next month or two.
Oh, okay.
That's already we got interviewed for that like 2 weeks ago. So yeah,
Very
it's
cool.
going to be great. And also Downbeat is doing a feature on us too.
Wow.
May's issue. The CD was of course challenging in that assembling part, but I had nothing to do with that. That was the genius of Barry and Ron. And then the recording, I mean, the musicians volunteered their time. We had the studio, so that really wasn't that bad either. And then James Taylor, that happened. I sent the letter. He listened to it. 3 months later, he's in his studio at the barn. We get a call from his engineer saying, "Oh, by the way, we're recording Coley's song." So that happened. So the record was actually done in January or February of 2010, so only a year after the accident.
Wow.
The film was a whole other story. I guess the only way to really say it is that the initial vision that we had, the people that were working with us at that time, to the initial filming and everything, the vision that we had for the project, we thought it was the same in the beginning, but it really veered off in the end. We ended up with a film that was just not my vision, and I still maintain, as his wife and as the person, doing this for my husband, I should have the final word about what the film was.
Sure.
So it was a divergence. We had to take everything back and then find an editor to re-edit, do things, take things out, mostly taking things out, but it's putting a few things in.
You cut it down.
Yeah, it ended up being 30 minutes shorter. And it's a 52-minute film. So it went from 82 minutes to 52. And when I first watched the first edit of the 52-minute film, I said, I don't miss anything. The story is all there. Wow, how could half an hour be gone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just, Bob DeMeo is the editor, and he's an Academy Award nominated editor. He worked with my cousin David Kirshner's father, who directed The Empire Strikes Back. So there's some Hollywood people out there on the West Coast in my family. So Bob was a family friend, and he's the genius that put this broken thing back exactly the way Zeb and I envisioned it, my brother-in-law and I.
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
And after doing the documentary and the CD, all that work, was there anything that you found out about Coley that you didn't realize before?
Nothing about him. Coley was an open book. And it's a really rare quality, when you look at somebody and you talk to them and you know that they are telling you the truth and they are, 100% there. That was one of the things that I fell in love with, honestly, about him. It was so obvious that that's who he was,
Yeah.
So I knew that already, but what I didn't know is just how loved he was, how he made people feel, hearing from his ex-students or his friends, or just, it's not like I'm surprised by it, but he would be so surprised by it. Like, his energy and his positive way of being made people feel a certain way, all in his life,
Yeah.
and that's also rare, and so I think his music reflects it.
Yeah, it certainly does.
100%. If you listen to his music, you know who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was jazz music that brought both of you together.
Yes.
And you also performed together. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we met in Cape May at the Cape May Jazz Festival in 1996. So almost 30 years ago.
Long time.
I just can't I can't believe that. Okay, anyway, we were both at the jam session, and I heard him play, and I thought, wow, that kid is really good, just really on fire, just really playing his butt off. And anyway, at the end, we spoke. He said, I love your singing. I said, I love your playing. He gave me his card. So a couple months later, I had a couple gigs in Washington, D.C., 2 there, and then 2 days later, 1 in Maine. And I said, all right, my guitar player couldn't make it. He's a wonderful guitar player. He was already booked. So I thought, who am I going to get that's going to do all this schlepping,
Right.
Nobody's going to want to do this except my guys. And I said, oh, that kid that I met down in Cape May. So I had his business card on my refrigerator, and I called him up, and he said, oh, let me check my book. is what he said. But later on, he told me, he's like, I knew I didn't have anything. But I'm like, ooh, I didn't want to seem too eager. I'm like, yeah, let me see, you know. Anyway.
He was in the other room going,
Exactly. Oh, and he probably was, because he was very silly like that. But anyway, yeah. So that was the weekend that week, and it was right after he graduated college, and he was getting ready to go to Manhattan School of Music, yeah, for his graduate degree.
Wow.
But that was the summer in between.
Yeah.
And so then we just started working together, and yeah, I mean, he was such a quick study. I mean, like, you know, I have a very thick book of my repertoire. You know, I've been singing a long time, and like, he never needed the music. Just such a quick.
Yeah.
He knew all the lyrics to things. I mean, he was 22 when I met him, but he was not 22.
Right.
You know, he was an old soul.
Yeah.
Old soul.
nice.
Yeah.
What are you hoping that the audience takes away from the movie?
Well, I desperately hope that, like music soothing the savage beast, I think his music could soothe people that are extra angry. I think anger is, you know, something that I'd like to see less of.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to listen to Coley's music and be angry.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, stop being angry. You know, love, peace, love, and joy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the message.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. And audiences have been responding to the film. You know.
Amazing. Again, this last weekend was the first time I'd shown it in a long time. But I remember in Virginia, specifically at that festival, I was greeted by a elderly woman, and I can say that. I mean, I'm elderly too, just about. But this little lady with little white hair and her little sneakers on, and she came up to me, and she came up to about here on me, and she looked in my eyes, and she had those kind of bluish greenish eyes like my grandmother had, you know, and especially when you're old, they get very pale. You know, they lose the intensity, but she kind of looked like my grandmother's eyes, and she held my hands and she said, I could feel the love.
Oh.
And I just lost it, and I ran to get my brother-in-law, and I said, you stay right here. I said, would you please tell him what you just told me? And I said, if nothing else, that is what I want this film to do.
Nice.
That's it.
Beautiful.
And I think you achieved that.
I did. I think I did too.
And what about future plans for continuing to celebrate this?
That is a very intriguing question, and it all depends on how things go, how many people are talking about him, because then opportunities open up. You know, that's the amazing thing about this technological age, is now they know how many people are listening. They know 84,000 people listened to Coley's record in the last 3 weeks. Yikes, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this is a good time to be, you know, just kind of a cowboy and just go. I would love, my fantasy is to get some musicians together that could perform this music and then show the film first set and then perform the music. And that's 2 hours, which is what most shows are.
Yeah.
So have the film and then hear the music.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be
And I don't think that's a crazy fantasy, you know. The music is, I would have to get the right people. I'd have to get the right singer.
Right.
That's important.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable.
That
So
would be
that's
fantastic.
what's on the horizon. But honestly, to be at this point with people letting me know how they feel about this music and this film, I couldn't have ever imagined that. And we're just at the beginning now. So I have to completely reset how I think things are going to go now, because
Yeah.
things are just completely different than I could have imagined. That this many people already
Right, it has taken off.
with
right?
nothing.
Yeah,
With well, I shouldn't say nothing. I've got a great publicist,
Mhm.
Roberta Lawrence and DL Media. I've got David Avery as my radio promoter. We hired a great guy, and Brian Cronin is our digital guy, and Mirror Image he is, and I know that it's their hard work that's getting those numbers up like that.
Right.
Believe
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
they're all working at it, but it still is amazing. No matter how good your PR team is,
Right,
those kind of numbers for jazz are unheard of. So this
right.
is on the Americana chart.
Right. Is there possibly more music?
Well, no. I
No.
mean, unfortunately, we have his former record that he produced a guitar record.
Instrumental.
Yes, instrumental. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and he played, all 8 of his guitars at different points and accompanied himself. It's beautiful. So that's certainly will be more available. And then his Salt Brothers records, where You Got Me Too came from, that was recorded in 1999. That's why my voice and his voice are singing together, because
Okay.
we recorded it in 1999.
Got
So
it,
there's
yeah.
that, but unfortunately, unless I release his, rehearsal tapes, working on his flamenco or something,
Yeah, yeah.
that's it. So it's kind of like even more special.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people wanted to see the movie, where would they
Right now,
find it?
try to see if it's in a. Well, I'm going to go back to Asbury Park. They did say that they'd like it 2 more times. They want to show
nice.
Wow,
it in
that's
a couple
great.
weeks,
Okay.
and then maybe in the summer, like big
Yeah.
Yeah,
people season.
right.
But yeah, we did so well, and they loved it, and I loved being there. So we'll do another showing, and now of course I have the CD. I do have, several hundred of those, so I can. They are available for sale.
Yeah.
At a film festival probably
Yeah.
or something.
Right.
We do have a website. We have colemanmellet.com, and we have maybe we could spell that out, and then we have singyouabrandnewsong.com, but that was one I did a couple years ago. I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but what I'd like to have is a somehow a page that people can be on a mailing list or something,
Yeah.
where they can communicate.
Right.
Like because
Help spread the word.
if I do sell albums, I'm probably gonna have to do that somehow by myself. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm
but
not
you
sure.
need some way of
Being
that's
able
a
to
whole
sell
other
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get
We
to
see a lot of
probably
musicians.
hire people to do that for you,
Yeah,
right?
you would put probably something on his website, colemanmellet.com,
Right.
store, and then
Right.
people can go to the store and buy
But you
the
need to
album.
do something. It's just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it has to be something, and
Right.
that's not my area of expertise.
Right.
Yeah, but hopefully that will. So I'm looking for an LP.
Mhm.
And I'm looking for a way to perform his music to the standard in which we all want, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be able to do that,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
and show the film and the performance together, don't you think?
Yeah,
That
I
would be
think
nice.
that would be amazing.
A live performance.
Yeah.
And then we could get the live performance professionally filmed, and then you could have a 3 thing. You could have the CD and the documentary, and then a live performance. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think
Three-part
about
set.
that?
Yeah.
Or a 3 album set.
Yeah.
But you'd have to be. They don't make. That's a Blu-ray. Can you? How do you people watch fabulous movies? On Blu-rays now, or what are they?
Stream it. You stream
Yeah.
You
it.
stream it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
maybe
you gotta
that.
get Hulu
So you got to do
or
that. So
Netflix or
one more. That's one on the wish
Apple.
list.
Yeah.
Wish list. Let's add in having some person that would love people to see this film. Work out a deal with me so they can show it.
Yeah.
Because that's all I want
Pay-per-view.
is for people to see it. I don't care about anything else. So
Right.
the best way I can do that is what I would like to find in distribution.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, but we're we're not even a month in, just about a month in. We released this February 12th, the anniversary of the accident. And in 1 month, it will probably be 100,000 listeners on Spotify alone. Just
Great.
Yeah.
1 month. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And well deserved.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
A big achievement.
Thank you.
And really does tell a beautiful story of his life and a great way to honor his memory.
Yes.
And we really loved having you here today.
I love being here. This
Appreciate
is this is the best clubhouse I've ever seen. You know, I'd like to see the lamp, a lava lamp. That's the only
We're
thing
just missing the lava
I'm
lamp.
missing, because I had that in my bedroom when I was little. But this is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
being
A pleasure
here.
being here.
All right.
Absolutely.